next panel, I'll just introduce the moderator, Patrick Johnson, who's the CEO and founder of, in my opinion, a very, very cool name company, Rock Paper Reality. So come on up, the rest of the panel, and we'll get going.
Hey everybody. Let's see, I guess I'll go over this way. All right. What's that?
Oh, under your picture. Under your picture.
Oh, under the picture. Got it. Oh, yeah. Perfect. Patrick Johnson. I'm, as mentioned, CEO, founder of Rock Paper Reality. I've been working in AR for the last 6 years. Prior to founding that company, I was director of business development for Austral Design Group. They were one of the founders of, or early developers of smart glasses, and that was back in 1999. And since then, you know, my company today, we create 3D content, AR experiences for everything from consumer-facing retail, and also for enterprise. So yeah, to kick it off, I think we'll just go around, pass around the mic and introduce ourselves. We actually have a surprise panelist from Magic Leap because Andy couldn't make it, and so I'll just let the panelists kind of go around and introduce themselves.
Greetings, and thank you for having me. I was hoping to be in the audience tonight because I like watching these things. I'm Mark Morrison, and thank you to the previous panel too. That was very interesting, and thank you for our hosts. As Patrick said, I work for Magic Leap. Probably many of you know Magic Leap. If you'd like to have a demo, something really cool, this is not really a marketing piece here, but we're right up the street this week at AT&T with a Game of Thrones activation, and it's really cool. So you can look online, you can go to the AT&T store at Powell, and if you haven't experienced Magic Leap, I highly encourage you to do that one first if you like Game of Thrones. I've been in Immersive Technology, I may call it ImTech tonight, for about five plus years. Before that, I was at Unity. I worked at Unity for about 3 years, helping to build the games business for the enterprise verticals. And previous to that, I was in video games. Previous to that, I was in music. So I'm just real kind of humbled to be here, and thank you for all of you coming.
Hi, I'm Fred Davis. I've been a technologist for most of my life. My dad worked at IBM when I was a kid, so I was kind of born into the computer world. I was the editor of a whole lot of different computer magazines back when magazines made money and were big. And I'm one of the founders of Wired Magazine and CNET and Ask Jeeves, which became Ask.com. And I work with a lot of startups. I got involved with virtual reality in the late 1980s when I ran into Jaron Lanier, who came to a party at my house and showed me what he was working on, and he's the guy who coined the term. And then AR, VR, XR, I like to call them reality technologies. I've been involved with those for over 20 years, and I firmly believe that everyone, even the most over-optimistic people, are completely underestimating the impact that reality technology is going to have on our lives and on our society, because it's the most powerful new medium ever. And we live in a media-saturated society, and media changes the world and changes our lives and affects political. I mean, look at what social media is doing today, or what the news media is able to do. Reality technology is, in and of itself, a powerful new form of media, and the ability to change everything around you and change what you see and change how you perceive other people and yourself is far more powerful than one might think based on the very, very early stages of the technology today.
Hello everyone, my name is Yusan. I am a researcher at Visa, and for my research I work on AI and fashion. I have a PhD in computer science, and for my PhD, 90% of it I worked on recommendations. So I actually resonate with a lot of things that was discussed in the previous panel. And during my PhD, I also did a lot of research in fashion using quantitative research. I am personally an extreme optimist of AI, especially in fashion, because even though working on AI for over six or 7 years now, I still think fashion, when you do recommendation, is one of the hardest applications that you can encounter, because that is one of the very few recommendation problems where you actually have to take into aesthetics, and individuality is so much stronger than any other application you can face. So I'm happy to talk about more of AI if you're interested.
Great. So just kick it off. So one of the earlier experiences that I kind of was involved in was with Saks Fifth Avenue, Qualcomm, and MasterCard. We created a experience, in-store experience, where users could actually come in, they put on smart glasses, and they're able to optimize a mannequin to be able to see the materials, the look and fit, and ultimately be able to make the purchase in store. It was just a proof of concept, but ultimately there was going to be a back end to it where you could actually make the purchase, you could pick it up at the concierge, or have it delivered to your home. And that was something I thought was just really cool, and I'm kind of interested to hear your guys' thoughts in terms of in-store experiences. How is AR and AI going to reinvent the brick and mortar brand engagement, and also just improve the consumer shopping experience?
I think I'm going to defer to our colleague on the far left for the AI portion. Do you want to jump in and start us off?
Yeah, I think I can talk about AI, but for AR, I will be clueless. I think in order to improve the shopping experience for the consumers, using AI, one of the biggest things is personalization. Even though a lot of you might think, oh, if I don't give enough data for the AI machine, they won't know enough about me. But the thing is, even though individuality is strong, there are many, many people in the world that will be somehow similar to you, and then we can learn from them. So that itself, for example, you're walking into the store, and maybe you can swipe your card. We can, this sounds a bit creepy, but we might know what you have purchased in the past, and then that we can infer who are having the similar consumption behavior as you, and then we can infer what you will be interested in as well. Besides the personalization, compatibility is also a huge part in fashion, which is very rare in other applications as well. Because when you're buying a shirt, many of us are not just looking at it and seeing, oh, I love this shirt on its own, but I will be thinking about what goes well with this at home, or if I only buy this, if nothing goes well at home, what else do I want to buy in the store to put them together? So learning the compatibility is also what the AI can do. So what we can do is learning from the historical data, maybe outfit in the wild, that you see a lot of photos taken, and you see, oh, these shirts, they go well with these kind of shoes, learn that for the AI, and so on. So making recommendations to users, not just personally, but also compatibility will be very helpful.
Yeah, first I'll speak about the AI part. One of the things that I think is going to be really impactful in fashion is that if you have a lot of AIs that work for each store who just have a little bit of data about you from that store, it's not as useful as an AI fashion advisor that works for you, that collects the information about your shopping across multiple stores, that understands the types of clothes that you wear, that you have in your wardrobe, and then can make much better personalized recommendations on an ongoing basis. And I think that AIs, with the voice interface that we see in Google Home and Alexa and in our phones, will be able to take a picture of somebody going, I love that outfit. Or you see something on TV and you'll take a picture of the screen. Yeah, I want that. And your AI will add that to its personalization database, so that when you're out shopping the next time, they'll have a much more accurate, holistic view of the things that you like. And then when it comes to augmented reality, my wife was playing around with this app called YouCam, which I think is brilliant. It's an augmented reality app for your phone that lets you try on different types of makeup. And it's so good that even with glasses on, it can put the eyeliner in exactly the right place, and the lipstick, and if you're talking and moving your head around or whatever, everything, it just doesn't jitter around on your face. It looks like you're wearing that look. And you can try on lots of different looks. And then if you find one you like, because one of the things UCAM has done, there's other products like this, what they've done is very clever, is you can then drill down in and see exactly what makeup. Oh, this was MAC makeup, and here's the things, oh, this was Yves Saint Laurent makeup, or whatever. You can look at the actual products that were used to create that look and get tips on how to apply the makeup. There's a huge industry on YouTube of people showing you how to put on makeup. I listen to this, my wife watching these all the time. And so I know that this is like there are teenagers making millions of dollars a year on their YouTube channels recommending and showing people how to use makeup. And I think augmented reality is going to play a really big role in allowing you to try on makeup and try on fashion and see what it looks like on you. And maybe even more controversial, and I'd like to hear what the other panelists have to say about this. I was talking about AR and fashion with one of my friends the other day, and we were thinking, well, when AR gets good, I could have my AR glasses on, and I could decide I like a certain type of fashion. Today I'm in a steampunk mode, or today I'm in a glam mode, and I could actually clothe everyone I see in that fashion. And the AR has the ability to overlay an outfit on you and make you look, the makeup, the clothing, the shoes, and everything. So my perception of the world could be very, very distorted, but it could also be very fashion focused on the way I felt I wanted to see other people dressed, or could even keep track of different people and dress them in a certain way. It almost brings up a couple creepy things too, because the whole idea of undressing somebody with your eyes could become a little too real for people. But I think there's some real ethical questions about, is it a privacy violation to dress or certainly to undress other people using AR technology? It's going to change everything, and those are some of the things I think we're going to have to grapple with, when this technology starts to mature.
Notice how he just set me up from that to how I segue into something not creepy. Okay, thank you. I'm going to do a quick survey here. How many folks in the room are in the business of either fashion or of fashion, by show of hands? And technology? How about both? Interesting. Okay, so I know that the theme here is really, we're kind of the convergence of that, and I noticed there's a lot of great activities this week that this organization is putting on, so kudos to you. It's interesting because if we want to kind of contextualize getting to the store and having this experience that I think we imagine, maybe we're years from that, but we're getting there. And so looking at the evolution of, VR, which is really, virtualizing completely 100% your environment, and having that experience is different than, what Fred talks about, AR, which really is the overlay of the digital, the virtual in the real world, where I think we're getting with what people are redefining as XR, MR, and magically we call it spatial computing, is the ability to kind of remove the dependencies of all these inputs and outputs that are hardware. How do we get to the point where we're kind of in that movie? How many people have seen that Valerian, the scene where they turn a desert into this really cool supermarket? Or, everything from Minority Report up to now. If you imagine going to the store and applying AI and whatever acronym with an R you want to call it, mixing digital real world with AI, I think we also have to ask ourselves, what is that? What is that expectation? What do we want? Because when we walk down the street and we see people in what they're wearing, I don't know about you all, but a lot of times I scratch my head, I'm like, wow, that's an interesting outfit, Will AI remove that opportunity to be superhuman? And as a father, I ponder on the technology that I'm a part of and love and very passionate about, because I think, what is it when we go across the street to Macy's, who makes some of the most amazing holiday installations, or up in Union Square, if we can apply the positives of AI to the positives of what I would call spatial computing, it's fantastic, and it's something that I look forward to. But there's a lot of pros and cons, and as you talk about before you pass the mic, these things that are less than positive, for those of you that are in the fashion business, I think we look to you all to lead us to the consumer path of mixing the technology and probably vice versa on the technology side. So I know I'm not answering your question, but I felt like, we needed to kind of, in the room here, get to a point where, maybe we're thinking about something that is positive. Because that's when I look at the future of all this, I think we all hope for positive, right? Something that's going to be good for all consumers and enterprise, everybody.
Yeah. And then maybe just taking a step back and thinking about it from the manufacturing and the design cycle of it. I think there's a ton of opportunities to use AR and I'm sure AI in the design process. And I know we've used it a lot for products in retail, from shoes and also everything to automotive. And I'm interested to see if you guys have any ideas around how AI might improve that, but also just in terms of the design cycle, is it going to accelerate the process through design by being able to visualize these mock-ups and take them out of a 2D and put them in a 3D, and then ultimately be able to collaborate them on those models with people around the world in real time. So yeah, let's talk about like the design cycle and if there is a fusion between AR and AI or either or.
I think definitely in terms of speeding up the design cycle, I see it can be done through the help of the newly emerging, I'm not sure whether it's a commonly heard word, but we call it GANE. So it's the generative model, generative adversarial network in AI. So what has been going on is, instead of looking back and understanding what's happening and then make recommendation, now AI has stepped up even more in terms of generating from scratch of what people might like in terms of design. And in the past few years, the technology has been showing something that looks definitely generated by AI. You can tell it's very pixie. But nowadays, there has been a lot of A/B testing. When you're given two pictures, you can't tell which is a real photo and which one is generated by AI. So I think this is very powerful when you do different kind of conditioning on it. For different designers, they will say, I'm going to give you data of these are what the things I have done before. AI, can you learn what is my style? And then I want to add in certain elements this season because I see this is what I want to do, and generate something new. Not necessarily just design it for me, but more of giving me more inspiration of what's going to happen. So I think that definitely, in terms of the designing part, not the actual manufacturing, the designing part, that will speed up the process for sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a big believer that people need to own their own personal information, and your federated identity around your stuff is to be more useful for AIs than a fragmented one owned by different stores. But certainly, once your own personal AI has a good idea of who you are and what you like, recommending things that you might like based on stuff that you have, accessorizing wardrobes. A lot of people have a hard time with accessories. What are the accessories that are going to be like this? Well, AI can do a fantastic job of understanding what other people have accessorized with and gotten compliments from and so forth based on that. So I think there's a real value for AI technology and extending your wardrobe. And the other thing is the mix and match. Like, everybody would like to know, okay, if I buy this jacket and 3 shirts and 2 skirts and 3 pairs of pants, how many different outfits can I make that look good together? Because there's an economy to the consumer to be able to do intelligent mix and matching from a set of clothes within their wardrobe to create a bunch of different looks. Maybe changing up the hair and the makeup a little bit, and the accessories, a different necklace, a different handbag, and so forth. And I think this is the kind of thing that both women and men like to know how to do, and is a money-saving activity, and really helps. And then also think at the design level, AI could help predict what some of these trends are going to be and help stores understand what should I be stocking in terms of inventory for the kind of people who live in the city that my store is in. Because there's very different regional tastes. What people like here is very different than what people like in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And so to understand the difference, and for a big retailer who has stores all over the country, I think it's going to be crucial for them to understand those style differences. And if they just have one buyer that's buying for the store the same thing, they're not going to sell well in each of their locations. And as stores can start to use AIs that understand the demographic and the psychographic of different geographic locations where their stores are located, they're going to have a better sell-through for their inventory. They're going to have fewer returns of stuff when they take them home. And they're going to do a better job of matching what they're selling and what they're designing to the actual tastes and preferences of that geographical region, because the United States is a big, and some of these are global companies, but there, you know, even within California, there's a different Northern California aesthetic than there is Southern California aesthetic. So I think understanding these regional aesthetics, there's a lot of complex data that needs to be analyzed, a lot of machine learning, a lot of looking at what people are into, and precise tracking of trends that will be important in this, and looking at media and television, the movies and music that influences taste making and tastes among the public. But I think AI is really going to be able to play a powerful role at the manufacturing, design, inventory levels with stores to be able to help make them more efficient and meet their customer demands better, because it's all about the customer. It's all about using this technology to help the customer make better purchase decisions that they're happier with and that they'll be less likely to return.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because when we talk about augmenting intelligence, which I consider AI as an umbrella over almost all of the technology we're talking about here, there's a lot of different schools of academic thinking, and I guess I come from an old school thinking, which is, you know, as we build technology, hopefully we're building it for us, right? We're not building it for other things. Obviously, money and things like that come into play, but I hope for a bottoms-up approach for augmenting our intelligence at retail, which is, what are all of my nuances, my attributes, the things that I really care about, and can I build upon those to make my lifestyle or my choices, or, you know, even with my family, my kids, and for those of you that have 12-year-olds out there probably going through this whole cycle of wondering why they're doing this when they're buying these things on Amazon or Fortnite, etc. But the bottoms-up approach, I hope, will be something that the Visas and the Macy's and the Targets can really help support and propel from an individual standpoint. You know, we've gone through 10 plus years of really user-generated content growing. And so, back to your question, can we iterate and ideate and make the process quicker and better from businesses to consumers? I think we can. But I think it has to be purposeful, and it has to be, you know, really joining together in some ways where you've got verticals that have different businesses. And quite often now you see competition coming together, which is kind of nice, because that's what it takes to get VR to a point where it's accessible to people, not only from a price point, but with content. You know, one thing I want to plant a seed and then pass it back to you is, what is the platform we evolved to from the internet? And I think a lot of us in tech space, Tim Sweeney and the Epic folks call it metaverse, we call it magicverse, but it's this layer of addition of really AI. If we're going to talk about the umbrella of the experiences being connected, both virtual and merging into our real world, taking the best of both parts and putting those together. Again, I think we're 5 or 10 years away from realizing that at a mass adoption level, but to help ourselves along the way and to grow the technology but still be human and enjoy our individualism and all the different things we're wearing here, I think we do have to really be thoughtful in how we do this as a business or as families or individuals.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, Fred and I were talking afterwards, and Fred, you mentioned that you had worn Google Glass for quite some time straight, and I think you would be a great person to kind of kick this off, just in terms of an experience. Like, what is it going to take for the average consumer to put a computer on their face and wear it day to day, and what's that experience going to be, form factor aside? What is it going to take for people to adopt this in mass? And yeah.
Well, for technology to really take off and get mass adoption, it almost has to be seamless and as invisible as possible. So Google Glass was extremely primitive. It was 3 years ago. The design of it was kind of clunky looking and made you look a little cyborgish. But I just wanted to know, for 9 months, every day, all day long, I had a virtual presence, an augmented reality presence. And it was really much more powerful than I thought it was going to be, because I was projecting as a futures kind of person. What will this be like when it's a full vision? And I think that the vision that we have of mass adoption is, you're not going to wear the computer on your face like with the HoloLens. It's going to be more like the Magic Leap, where there's a display on your face that's very lightweight, that's like a pair of glasses. And the compute power will be in your phone, or in a device that's sitting in your pocket, or maybe in the cloud. Because with 5G, we have the ability to stream virtual reality and augmented reality computation directly to a display. So, but the ability for it to be as lightweight as a pair of glasses. And one of the things that I've been extremely excited to learn about over the last couple of years is I know of several companies that are making contact lenses that can do virtual reality and augmented reality and just regular reality. You call it transparent for reality, translucent for augmented reality, and opaque for virtual reality. And I think it's those kind of devices that do multiple things, that we will have glasses that do virtual reality and augmented reality. Reality technologies will merge together in the devices, and depending on the application or where we are or what we're doing, we'll decide how much of reality to let in. And I think that when it's as simple and easy as putting on a cool pair of sunglasses or a comfortable pair of glasses, and the computational part of it. And one of the real questions is, because I know Apple has been thinking about this, I know Magic Leap has been thinking about this, I know I've been thinking about this for a long time, is when we do have really good augmented reality glasses, will we need a phone? Can we just, instead of pulling a real phone out of my pocket, can I just pull a virtual phone out of my pocket? Instead of sitting down at a real computer at my desktop, can I just boot up a virtual computer at my desktop? Instead of having a big screen TV at home, can I just spin up a giant virtual TV screen at my home? And I think we're going to get a lot of efficiencies ecologically, because the cost of manufacture, there's a lot of toxic chemicals in all of these products, in phones and computers and whatever. A really great augmented reality glasses can allow you to virtualize a lot of today's consumer electronics products and do away with the need to even manufacture that product, and do crazy things like, hey, they're talking about foldable phones. Samsung now has a foldable phone for $2,000 that you can unfold the phone and suddenly it's a tablet. Well, in the world of augmented reality, you can just stretch your virtual phone into any size that looks good to you, and then take it back and it disappears, and you just call it up by saying, you know, hey Google, get my phone, and boom, your phone now pops up in your hand or something like that. And I think that when we get to the truly lightweight, I think 5G is going to be important in this, but and the advanced display technologies, but I've seen a bunch of this stuff in the lab. I know it's coming, and we really will have things that are, you know, as easy to wear as wraparound sunglasses. Maybe they'll have a little bit of a thick stem at first, and those will just be the display unit that brings the virtual information to your eyes, and that the real compute power will be in a separate device or in the cloud. But that's where we're going with this technology, where it's really easy. It's $500 or less, so it's very affordable. I guess cell phones are $1,000 now, thanks to Apple. But it's in the price range of a cell phone. And then I think when it gets to that price point, when it gets to that quality, and this is what I think scares the heck out of Apple, is you don't need a phone anymore. And I know that Google and Apple and these big manufacturers in their labs are grappling with this very issue, because they understand that, you know, well, what came after personal computing, what came after the internet? Mobile. And mobile, more people browse the web with mobile now than browse the web on their computer with their browser. And I think in another 5 or 10 years, it's very hard to predict how long these technology cycles, adoption cycles, and progress cycles will take, but I know that I've seen so many of these cycles over the years. I know it's going to get there, and when it does, the change will be transformational, and it will probably displace mobile computing, because you'll be able to have all those mobile devices, more than you could ever carry, or stuff in all your pockets, and all of those things, all embedded in one device. And I'm really excited about that. I'm looking forward to it, both from a convenience standpoint, a usefulness standpoint, and I'm a San Franciscan. I don't care about the ecology and the environment and the wastage of manufacturing these products, to be able to have one product that does many things, which is what computers have always done amazingly well. Your phone is really many different products rolled into one, and AR glasses, or AR/VR, or reality technology glasses, are going to be able to do that same thing.
Sam?
Yeah, I want to add to the point where you mentioned how do we have the mass market accept any kind of new technology. I think there are two ways we can do it. First of all is, I think every time releasing something new, don't be too different, because over the years I realized for us in technology, we're always really optimistic, super excited about whatever's released newly. But for many people, it is scary. You don't know enough of what's going on, and suddenly you're offered with so many functionalities, then you feel like maybe it's dangerous, maybe it's going to invade your privacy and all these. So I feel like having a little bit of improvement is always the best. So if you notice for Instagram and Facebook, their interface won't change overnight. If they want to add something, they add it slightly, and then they test the water to see if the people accept it or not. So that's one thing. And another thing is, I feel like recently, because of AI being so successful and so many products are relying on AI, the media is most of the time celebrating it, but a lot of times also making it really sound horrifying. So then people that haven't experienced it yet, if that's the news they read, they are afraid of it. So then they reject the new technology, then that kind of slowed down the whole progress. But actually looking back, AI actually started all the way back in 1970s. A lot of people don't know, but just because back then we don't have that much data, that much computing power, so that's why it didn't take off, but it's been there the whole time. So I feel like both from the slight improvement in technology when we release it to the mass market, also from the media perspective, don't just tell them as if they're a horror story to scare people, because I think it's very optimistic and very exciting for sure.
Just to add a little bit onto that, I would agree with you, Sin. The theme of wearable for this crowd too, I think is really pertinent. You know, what am I wearing in 10 years that gives me that always-on connection, that connected experience, if it's one thing? And my guess is it may not actually be everybody with a face piece or face wear. It may be that most of our environments are connected already with holographic technology that produces, you know, what Luke and Obi-Wan were looking at Tatooine back in 77 for our years. But it's really going to be something that I think, as you made a really good point, familiarity, habits, that's human, right? Those are things that encourage and give confidence for us to kind of move forward with something new. So I challenge everybody here in this room, because probably somebody will be one of the people or the groups or the minds behind innovating what that wearable, that mass adopted wearable form factor is. And for now, we need to put together all these cameras in our headset, and that's how the Magic Leap 1 has come to market. And once you have that experience and you see it, and you use some of the apps and you feel like co-presence in immersive space where you remove the kind of the screen or what you would normally see in front of you, it's this slow graduation to again, the Magicverse, the place that we consider to be this truly immersive kind of merging of the physical and the digital the way you would want it as a consumer. So yeah, I think the point of the wearable being something very customized, slowly fitting to the form of your, not only your body, but your personality and your lifestyle is something that we will get there. When we get there, I think is a great, you know, billion-dollar question. Questions?
First, I want to thank you all for coming out to speak on the panel. I really appreciate it. I guess my question is more directed towards you, Yusan. You talked about a lot of your research being around recommendations and personalizations. So how does that work in the context of high-end luxury brands when scarcity is such a big part of the purchasing model? Is it just end up recommending you something that you can't purchase, or is it more going to be in the more commoditized goods space?
That is a very good question, because for us, building recommendation for fashion, we always start from the mass market. That's where we get the most data. So when I think of this problem, how I would approach it is we learn whatever we can based on the data we can access from the mass market first. And there's way when we can map the aesthetics from the mass market to the luxury. And then that's what we call the kind of content-based recommendation. We map the similarity even though they're in completely different markets. Using that, the model learned from the mass market, and then you apply it in the luxury end. So that is still solvable, but I agree with you. I personally feel like for luxury end, because the data is so sparse, it's very limited what we can do using AI. So AI compared to traditional machine learning, the difference is it requires really a lot of data. So yeah, that's the approach I would take.
It's not me. I'm wondering, because I know one virtual reality experience done by a company called Decathlon, which has just opened in Emeryville. It's a sporting good brand. It's on Market Street, 735 Market Street. I work a little bit with them, so just, we are business. And so they were doing in 2017 the experience on a store. They have a 2-second stand. You know, it just, you take the time to, you throw it on the ground and it's popping up. But it's not so easy. That's why they did this virtual reality experience. And it was helping to sell those stands because, you know, it sounds simple, but actually you don't want to buy it because it's too simple. So sorry for the long introduction, but you didn't talk about virtual reality. I consider it doesn't work though, and I don't see a big future, big potential. Good part here. But you didn't mention VR, AI, only things with starting with an A, and V is too far away, or why you didn't mention virtual reality in the panel?
I'm happy to mention that because I believe VR is the most powerful new medium ever, and that it's actually going to ultimately replace television as the dominant medium on the planet. And that's a bold statement. But virtual reality has an incredible impact on your subconscious. Unlike AR, the sense of full immersion, there's a sense of presence of being in virtual reality that is very, very different. Now, because you're closed off from reality, the fashion in VR is more of an avatar fashion. But VR is going to be an extremely powerful medium. And in fact, one of the very interesting things to me about VR is virtual reality has been demonstrated through all 30 years of scientific research to increase people's capacity for empathy. Now, we live in a world that needs to have a lot more empathy. And if I had a black box and I said, in this box I have a device that can increase your capacity for empathy, people would laugh. And if I took out a VR headset today, they would probably continue to laugh. But I know that from my own personal experiences and from psychological research that I've read and whatever, it can powerfully affect you because you can see through the eyes of someone else. You can really empathize with another person in a way that's impossible with any of the other technologies. So by leveraging that for across many different use cases, I think virtual reality is going to have an enormous impact on society. And my fear is, because I always, as a former journalist, do look at the hazards, is in VR you can be a god. You know, in real life you're some schlump in Sheboygan.
Counterpoint.
So it's like,
Counterpoint.
you know,
Sorry.
so it's like, what do you end up choosing for yourself? Because your choice to live in virtual reality might be so addictive and compelling that you could lose touch with reality, which would be a shame because the best is a combination.
So Fred, I hope we're still friends after my counterpoint. I think there's a reason that we didn't talk about that tonight, mainly which is It is a medium, as Fred talks about, that's really specific and successful with certain things. I totally agree about the empathy. Training, simulation, education. Building empathy is something that the Stanford VR lab, Jeremy Bailenson, who probably a lot of people know about, that's something that they experimented with and proved successful. It worked. But when we talk about everybody in the world and technology that's accessible, and again, to Houston's point about familiarity, physically and mental kind of stability, there's a lot that VR can do, but my counterpoint is that we've gone through that for the last 3 or 4 years, and you actually answered the question. You said it didn't work. You're in the business. You were up the street.
No, they were selling fans.
Okay, but I thought you mentioned it didn't really. Okay.
Excuse me,
Okay.
French.
No
It was
problem.
working very well.
Not a problem.
And they were
Not a
super
problem.
happy.
Okay.
And I can even add that a very luxury brand that I know, and I won't mention the name, wants to work on the project.
So what I will say, because I know you're a VR fan.
No,
VR, no, but hang on. Okay, I'm putting words in this guy's mouth. Look, VR. Look, people come to me all the time and ask me about HoloLens versus Magic Leap. They both serve a great purpose, right? We're in a world full of solutions with way more problems. But when we talk about VR for this entire crowd here, if you've put a go on and tried to watch a movie, I applaud you if you watch the whole movie without stopping. Physically, I can't do it. I want to do it. I like 180 degrees, I like 360 degrees, but I'm also connected to the earth, to this world. So for me, my human, like physicality and my mentality. So to answer your question, I'm not sure if VR will find its way to mass market with this group. And that's, I think, a big part of the reason why we didn't focus on that as much as mixing and evolving into that.
Things like
Maybe, yeah.
displays,
Yeah.
high-res displays, things like that will be indistinguishable from reality. We're just, today's hardware sucks, but that doesn't mean VR sucks.
Well, nobody said, no, in all fairness, no one's actually bagging on any of this. It's an amalgamation of experiences and an evolution where we get somewhere, right? I'm curious what you think. Patrick's been in the business a long time.
I think I got one more question, so I'm gonna open it up to the audience and just get one more.
Thank you. My question is related to AI ML. So a big business with a lot of resources and bandwidth and capabilities is able to put those resources into AI ML operations, which costs a lot of money, a lot of people, and so on and so on. From a small fashion business perspective, will there be a point in the future in which a small fashion business can leverage those AI ML insights from big business? And if so, will there be any type of monopoly by big business that says, no, we're not going to give that out because that's our advantage? So I'm just curious about your thoughts.
Okay, so just a disclaimer, I won't speak on the behalf of Lisa, but more on the behalf of myself. I think that is the exciting thing of the whole research field recent years, because everything is almost all open source. So nowadays, the computer science community, the research papers has never been published this fast and this intense. And that is exactly due to, for that reason. Newer and newer models are being released, and researchers are more than happy to share how they put the model together. And those things are most of the time required by the journals or conferences to put the code online. And another exciting part, so the model part done, but all you need is the GPU, the deep learning machine to run those, right? But nowadays we have AWS, we have Azure, you can rent the machine on the cloud and then run it. But then the other part is, because AI requires so much data, where do you get it? If your business is just at the starting point and you can't acquire that much data, how do you even input the data into the machine? So the exciting thing is, first of all, there are a lot of open data sets that are online. Another thing is, even if the structured and organized data are not what you're looking for, there are a lot of fashion social networks. For example, Polaroid, even though it got acquired by Sense, but you can go to the archive web machine. In Instagram, if you crawl it, there are a lot of APIs you can collect the data. And also, there's a website Like to Know It, and there's a fashion network Lookbook. They all have millions of users, all using their user-generated content to share with the world what they create and cultivate. Those are really good starting points. So I would suggest take the data you think fit your business the most, and don't try to worry about the model. Just try to see what is the state of art at this moment. If they're open source, use it, and then feeding the data that you want.
I think that's all the time we have.
I'll just say one more quick thing to that.
Sure.
I spent a lot of time doing machine learning and AI stuff on a project that I have. The AIs are getting so good that right now hiring a data scientist is extremely expensive. But very soon, the AI will be your data scientist and will help that small business person implement the AI models that are custom tailored for you. And I know Google and a lot of the big companies are working on just that because they want to expand the market to include small and medium-sized businesses. And that's not yet here, but we're very, very close. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's the AutoML. So if you guys are interested, you can search for AutoML. So basically, what a lot of the computer scientists have been doing in history is taking a problem, think about how you would design the model, and then trial and error of many, many iterations, try to see whether you can get really good accuracy. But nowadays, it's almost like feeding the problem, feeding just some possible architecture of the models. The AutoML learns that model for you. So I think that's what you're referring to. Yes, our Pinterest, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's all the time. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Hi guys, that was awesome. Thank you. Thanks for such great energy. I love it. Does anyone need to stretch for just a moment? Just stand up and stretch. And then we'll go ahead and invite our final panel to come on up. Get started. I feel like that is necessary, right? Stretch.